Kansas heads to College Station Saturday night to face Texas A&M.
Stiff arm, down he goes! Down he goes!
Coverage begins Saturday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
53-yard attempt for Dan Carpenter. Richard Sherman just cuts the legs out from underneath Dan Carpenter. The flags go down and Carpenter is hurt.
Surprised that's not a roughing the kicker.
How can they not make this call?
Delay of game.
Oh my goodness.
Offense.
The official didn't back away from the football till there was 5 seconds left. And a knuckle ball that is no good.
From an officiating standpoint, I think he could do a little better than that.
I'm in a great deal of pain every day of my life. I'm a player who played 7 years in the NFL. I've had a laundry list of injuries from head to toe. Currently, the NFL bans the use of cannabis for any reason. It's safer than what's on the streets, and it's safer than what's being provided, even by NFL team doctors.
And now, reporting for Outside the Lines, Bob Lee.
$13 billion in annual league revenues, $55 billion in media contracts, millions invested in instant replay. The suggestion just last week of adding an 8th on-field official, all of that. And still a colossal 2-pack last night of NFL officiating errors, leading just before halftime of the Monday night game between the Bills and Seahawks to controversy. With a decline in NFL primetime television ratings, moments such as last night's reinforcing critics about the quality of the product and the efficacy of the officiating. The Bills, rather than a 38-yard field goal attempt to make this a one-score game after a 7-minute zebra theater, were left down 11 and feeling gobsmacked.
Oh boy, are they offside. Whoa. They went through and attempted the kick, and now Carpenter down grabbing his knee as Richard Sherman hit him.
Prior to the snap, offside, number 25, defense, unabated to the kicker. It's a 5-yard penalty.
Surprised that's not a personal foul for roughing the kicker as well, which would be 15 yards.
If you continue after they've blown the whistle for an offside, it's no different when they pick up a quarterback and stuff him. You're going to get that 15-yard penalty.
The offside penalty will be enforced on number 25. Trainers came onto the field to attend to kicker number 2. This will be a charged 4th timeout for Buffalo. Number 2 will have to leave the game.
Which means they can't try the field goal. So a double whammy for Rex Ryan and Buffalo. They don't get the roughing the kicker call, and they have to do this to stop the clock with 1 second to go to bring an end to a wild first half. They took too much time. Is that possible? But the official didn't back away from the football till there was 5 seconds left on the play clock. Now it's a 54-yard try. And a knuckle ball that is no good.
All right. NFL officiating chief Dean Blandino immediately tweeted to acknowledge that first error, the lack of a personal foul call roughing the kicker, and he later acknowledged the early restart to the play clock, which led to that 5-yard delay of game. Let's get out of the weeds of last night's swamp and into the bigger picture with ESPN NFL business analyst Andrew Brandt. Inevitably, Andrew. I won't necessarily say there will be lawyers here, but there will be cries for full-time officials. What's the chance of that? What's the backstory of that?
Yeah, we've been having those cries for a long time. This is nothing new, Bob, and I covered this lockout, not a lockout of the players. Remember 2012, the referees were locked out. You remember the replacements and the touchception in Seattle, same place as last night. And one of the issues was full-time referees, and it was the NFL wanting that and the officials demurring against it. They didn't want that. They want their second income, and in many cases, their first income. I've seen... Last year, I saw Gene Steratore do a Monday night game, and the next night I was at a Villanova basketball game, and there he was again. So they want that second income. There is no full-time official sentiment going on either side right now. Here's where we were left with after the negotiation, the new CBA, Bob. We have the ability of the NFL to hire full-time referees, but there's no specificity, no timeline. They just have that ability. We hear there are a few full-time referees, but it just doesn't seem like that's part of the equation.
All right, let's move from that quickly to an election day issue, and that is in the city of San Diego, where there's a ballot issue to partially fund the new Charger Stadium, which must pass by 2/3. It's an incredibly high bar. If it doesn't carry, and it probably won't, then what?
It's a tough ask. The polling is showing about 50%. It looks like it won't pass, and that 66.7 is a lot. A couple things could happen. One, Dean Spanos could look at it. If he gets more than 50%, go back to the drawing board with San Diego. Try to get refurbishments at least on the Qualcomm Stadium, which is an insufficient facility. Then there's the option of L.A. until January 15th. They do have that option. We'll see if they go to L.A., join the Rams in a proposal that was worked out a year ago when the Rams were given the relocation ability in a league meeting. So we'll see what happens then.
We'll watch the votes tonight in San Diego. Andrew Brandt, thank you very much.
You got it.
Now, among the many ballot issues today across the United States, marijuana, the use of medicinal pot, or the legalization of marijuana for recreational use. Now, as you'll see, this matters to a lot of NFL players, current and past, who say, we're hurting, we smoke, it is for pain relief, and the league should recognize that. 20 of the NFL's 32 teams play in states where medicinal marijuana is legal, and 15 teams play where pot use has been decriminalized. Today's voters in 9 states will decide even further. 4 states voting on legalizing medical marijuana. Polling says there's overwhelming support for that in Florida, a tight race in Arizona. 5 states decide decriminalization, and polls indicate easy passage in California, probably Massachusetts as well. Now, in California, retired NBA player Al Harrington has lent his name to the pro Prop 64 pro pot forces.
My experience with my own pain, what it did for my grandmother, definitely made me take a deep look into the industry, and I ended up investing in the space. Marijuana, I feel, has enhanced my life. I still wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I walk my dog, and then I go straight to the gym.
Now, Harrington talks about investing in the marijuana industry. If California today legalizes pot, within 4 years, the legal national market for marijuana could be a $22 billion annual industry. Eugene Monroe is a just retired NFL player. He's just 29. He is smoking for pain relief. The former offensive tackle smokes rather than take prescription painkillers, and he is a novice medicinal marijuana entrepreneur, and he spoke recently with E60.
I played in the NFL for 7 seasons. I've had a laundry list of injuries from head to toe. I'm in a great deal of pain every day of my life. We've all grown up.
Oh, yeah. A few weeks away from fully ready to go for the patients.
I've been on a steady course of drugs almost daily so I can continue to play. I'd love to see an atmosphere where we push away from the opioid drugs and use marijuana as a healthier, more natural way to heal from pain.
Oh, yeah. Another new strain came to us.
The stories are sad about how players went down a dark path. Players talk about taking dozens of Vicodin on a daily basis. Currently, the NFL bans the use of cannabis for any reason, and they continue to say they're waiting on the science. States are legalizing the use of marijuana, understanding that it's safer than what's on the streets and it's safer than what's being provided even by NFL team doctors. This is a change that needs to happen.
Drug overdoses are the leading cause of accidental death in America, and the rate of such death quadrupled between 1999 and the year 2008. Currently, 40% of drug overdoses in the United States are from prescription opioids. That's double the number of heroin overdoses. Now, the National Football League does test for marijuana, but that test is commonly disparaged as an intelligence test, that knowing you're going to be tested just one time a year for the most part, will in a very strict 4-month window before the season, under new guidelines that more than double the tolerance for marijuana in your system. All of that would seem to indicate a de facto wink and nod acceptance of the drug, even as league officials from Roger Goodell, the commissioner, on down talk about adhering to federal law in this prohibited substance. Currently on ESPN.com, Eugene Monroe, his use and his activism is vividly captured by one of the best, Tom Juneau, who joins us today. Happy to have him here. Sean Smith is here as well. He played 8 seasons in the NFL as a defensive lineman as recently as 2012. And 2 months ago, he tweeted that he had smoked prior to playing in games in the NFL. Edmund Britton played in the NFL, an offensive lineman, and he too admitted recently to the New York Post that he had played, when they said it in the headline, stoned as well. Guys, it's good to have you all here. A lot to talk about. Tom, first, you spent a lot of time with Eugene. Describe your observations of his physical condition.
Well, Eugene is he's one of those guys. You can tell he's a former NFL player by the way he walks and by the way he moves. He is one of those guys who is, you can just tell he's been wounded. He's been damaged. He is continually twisting his neck, and his neck is continually making these grinding sounds. He's continually trying to snap his shoulder back in place, and you can just see that it costs him something to move.
Eben, you played with him in Jacksonville. You roomed with him. You know him well. What kind of a guy is Eugene?
Eugene had an unbelievable work ethic. I mean, he was one of the sweetest guys. I mean, we've been best friends since being drafted way back in '09. Really, I consider him to be a brother, and you know, this doesn't it doesn't surprise me for him to take this stance on, you know, something that he believes to be, you know, the right form of pain management.
All right, let's play a little numbers game. We got a lot to talk about, but Sean, if you would, your estimate of the number of players in the league, active players from your experience, who smoke on a regular basis for pain relief.
I'll say about between 60%, 60 and 70%.
Eben, what's your guess?
I'd say somewhere around there. You know, I think it's definitely at least half, and maybe if not more so.
Tom, what did Eugene offer in the way of an estimate, or did he?
About the same.
Yeah, so we're well over the halfway mark in a lot of that. Sean, let me ask you, what's your day-to-day physical condition, having played in the league?
It's tough. It's tough getting up in the morning, getting out of bed with my bones cracking, always aching. It's hard sometimes. I can't even play with my kids, and they are very active in sports, and I have 3 girls, and I can't do certain activities unless I have that to get my body going and moving around. Like you say, Eugene, neck is cracking and all that. I go through the same thing. And I played 10 years, especially the guys that play in the trenches. We battle, and our body's in really a lot of pain. And it's funny when you go to a regular doctor, now that you're not seeing an NFL doctor, they're like, ooh, I can only imagine how hard your body go through. Oh, man, you're in bad shape. You need this, you need that. But nobody wants to keep taking all these pain medicine, and it's not helping you. It may cure the problem for maybe a little second, but then after that, I don't want to have no surgery.
Yeah, you bring up an important point. Eugene talked about that in our recent interview, talking about that conflict between prescription medication, opioids, opiates, and what else is available. Let's give a listen.
For a long time, I've been forced to take pharmaceutical drugs that were causing adverse effects not only in my body, but potentially in my life. I've met players who retired and have gotten divorced and gone into depression, and their lives been turned in a 180 because of pharmaceutical drugs, but have found cannabis now and have gotten their lives back.
Eben, what's the level of your concern about all the painkillers you have been prescribed over the years? Obviously now you partake of cannabis, but having been prescribed by medical professionals over the years, what was your level of concern at the time even?
You know, my concern was in doing whatever it took to be on the field. If that meant taking, you know, prescription anti-inflammatories like Indocin or Cataflam throughout the day just to deal with, you know, the day-to-day grind, I mean, that's what I was going to do. For me, being raised in a very holistically minded family, that always sort of I had this built-in gravitation towards cannabis as, you know, my preferred source of pain management. I didn't feel crazy, I didn't feel angry, the irritation, not really doing anything for the pain, and as well as making it difficult to sleep. You know, cannabis really provided a much more natural, much more beneficial relief for me in, you know, easing my psychological stress with being injured, as well as helping me sleep at night.
I mentioned earlier in the program, Tom, they doubled the tolerance at the last negotiation. It's collectively bargained. There's a strict window. It's been called an intelligence test. We invited the league to be with us today. They did decline our invitation. They issued a statement which says, in part, medical experts have not recommended making a change or revisiting our collectively bargained policy and approach related to marijuana, and our position on its use remains consistent with federal law and workplace policies across the country. End quote. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I've heard that before. When I interviewed an NFL official about the marijuana policy, that's exactly what they said and kept on saying for a half hour. They do not like talking about their marijuana policy because I think that the marijuana policy, if you look at what a policy is supposed to accomplish, is really a complete failure. If it's supposed to stop players from smoking marijuana, well, obviously it doesn't. And if it's supposed to engender respect around the league for the league and for its policy, well, it doesn't, because even the use of the term intelligence test is a cynical kind of wink at the policy that most players regard as a joke. And then you get to the point where you still have players being suspended for a policy that they call the intelligence test. And that is, it's just I think all around it's a failed policy, and yet the NFL still sticks to it.
Now, Sean, how would you describe the current NFL marijuana policy?
I mean, it's cut and dry. You pretty much know when you can smoke and when you can't smoke. Some guys decide to be rebellious and don't know when to stop. You gotta stop.
Is that rebellious or addicted? Or just dumb?
All of the above. All of the above. You don't want to mess with your money, so you should know when to stop. But you have that time window when this is the last day you can stop and when you can start back after you take the test, when you take the test. It's funny that you say that the league doesn't want to take a stand on it and elaborate more on it, but that's all comes down to the commissioner. Roger Goodell, he knows. A lot of these people in the NFL probably don't even want to talk about it because they do it themselves. They'll be hypocrites. I believe at least half of the world smokes marijuana. Some for recreational, some for pain.
Mm-hmm. All right, I got to ask this question. I'll put myself in the half that does it, which will be no shock to most that know me, but my drug of choice is the Malbec grape, but that's a whole other story. But Evan, let me ask you, how the hell do you play NFL football if you're stoned?
Well, how do you play NFL football on a handful of Vicodin? I mean, it's
exactly
one or the other. I prefer cannabis in that scenario. And you're talking about, doing whatever it takes to get through the pain to play on Sundays. Yes, and if it's about taking a handful of Vicodin, a couple anti-inflammatories, maybe throw an Adderall in there.
The Toradol. Don't forget the Toradol shot.
Of course, Sean. You know the Toradol days when we were getting the shots. I mean, towards the end of my career, they started outlawing the shots and only giving guys pills. I mean, for me, the wreckage that causes on the interior of your body, what that's doing to, your lifespan. When you look at what cannabis is as an alternative to all that, I mean, that's just the ground floor of what this plant can provide.
So, Sean, how would you describe your level of play if you spoke the day of a game?
Oh man, I felt like when I was on, I played well. I was in a zone. I didn't feel a lot of pain. When you're a 340-pound guy taking on double teams and triple teams, that's a lot. After the game, my body used to hurt, like real bad. I'd be in so much pain. So at the level, I could function well. Not truth be told, cannabis has been part of my life for a long time. I have Jamaican in my family too, so to me it helps me.
All right, it is a fascinating topic, and we will certainly be revisiting. Tom Juneau, thank you, sir, for being here. Sean Smith, Evan Britton, appreciate it. And Tom's outstanding piece on Eugene Monroe is in the current edition of ESPN the magazine, on sale everywhere now. We'll be back.
Football lives here. North Carolina sits in first in the ACC Coastal and have their sights set on defending their title.
Across the 45, 50, 40, 35, dives to the cone, touchdown, 80-yard run. Wow.
Up next, they head to Durham to face their fiercest rival, Duke. Coverage begins Thursday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Presented by Dr. Pepper.
Yo, how you doing, man? I'm LeBron James, and I want to say thanks to all the troops for what you do. You guys are the real heroes. I mean, you guys see me, and you guys see other guys in our sport and other guys across the sports always on TV, but without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do what we do, and ladies. So thanks, and happy Veterans Day.
Connect with OTO socially. We stream live each day. We've got original content online. You can follow me on Twitter. Go to the app to register for our podcast. We'll alert you when it's up each and every day. Next, things I've seen. They're important to remember on Election Day.
I'm Jamel Hill, and on the latest His and Hers podcast, award-winning writer and millennial culture critic Jamila Lemieux joins me to discuss the impact sports is having on the presidential election.
Lots of tabulation today. We've got the new college football playoff top 25. Tonight, 7 Eastern, Reese and the guys sitting down with the chairman, Kirby Hocutt, to go over the numbers. And, of course, it's all streaming. And then could be a dual screen evening. Sports Center at night, Lisa and John, all the highlights, all the news, and of course, not just on YouTube, but streaming as well. If you have not yet voted, you have plenty of time to get it done today. Public opinion polling would suggest, here's a shock, the lack of enthusiasm about this presidential election is as high as it's ever been. So why vote? Does it really matter? It does. From the bluffs of Puente Duac to the streets of Havana, Cuba, I have seen it this year with my own eyes.
Well, Lindsay, this was about more than just. We have a moment here with a political demonstration.
During our broadcast directly outside the Cuban Capitol building in Havana, a group of political dissidents voiced their demands for a multi-party democracy. They were immediately set upon by plainclothes police. Their cries for greater political freedoms in Cuban life were stifled as they were wrestled, some violently, and stuffed into the back of waiting cars. 3 months later, I stood on the blustery coast of Normandy by the cliffs of Puente Duac, which had been impossibly scaled by U.S. Army Rangers on D-Day. There was the broad expanse of Omaha Beach, a killing field on that fateful day. And there by the order of battle above the beach, a group of French schoolchildren were listening intently to how their nation and their continent was freed at great cost. A short walk from there, that cost sits for reflection and appreciation thousands of times over.
Elections matter. Choices matter. Vote. College Football Live, the new poll coming up.
The North Carolina Tar Heels head to Durham to face their fiercest rivals, the Duke Blue Devils. Touchdown! Coverage begins Thursday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Presented by Dr. Pepper.